Hello gamers and welcome to Game Warp. I'm Elwood.
I'm Kim.
And up next, our review of Ori and the Blind Forest. Ori and the Blind Forest is a game developed by Moon Studios and put out through Microsoft Studios. Released in 2015, this is another Metroidvania game. This is a game very much in the style of Seasons After Fall. It's a very art house style looking game, and perhaps for that extent it can be very misleading as the sort of game that you can get, as this is not so much an art house platformer, but in many places a brutally tough Metroidvania style game that requires you to have as much a quick trigger finger as it does to have reflexes of a fox. The game itself is set in a mystical world where you play as Ori, who is this little spirit creature who was separated from the spirit tree, which acts as the narrator of the story. And she was taken in by this creature named Naru, who raised Ori as her own, and unfortunately this event caused the spirit tree to basically lose hope, and it caused the forest to die, including Naru. So it's a little bit of a downer this story starts on, and basically as Ori, you're left to your own devices. You're left to explore the forest and to basically revive the spirit tree and bring light back into the forest, all the while being portrayed by this evil owl known as Kuru. This is certainly another original game, and it's one that has certainly had a lot of interest, especially with fans of independent gaming, for not only its very visual art style, but also its very emotional storytelling as well. But Kim, I mean, Ori and the Blind Forest, going into this one, we were excited already because from E3 we saw the sequel, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This original game, I mean, how excited were you obviously going into this one?
Well, it's definitely been a game that's been on my to-play list for a really, really long time, and it's not that I wasn't motivated, it's that when you play games like us and you have to do everything that we do, sometimes it's hard to prioritize into going back into our dialogue, into our catalog, and just being like, oh, in the hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but like over 100 Steam games in our list, which one do you start with, right? And, you know, Ori is a little bit of a longer indie game. It averages at around 10 hours for the average person. For me, I'm about 40% into the game. I was at 5 hours. So I was obviously breaking the norm of where things were. I was definitely going to be a lot longer than the game would take someone else to play. But, I mean, this game is, I was excited. I mean, people had talked about, crying like crazy over this game because it was just so emotional. They were talking about art was so beautiful, which you can see in the trailer. And, I mean, Ori is this, amazing creature that you really bond with as you play. And I agree with most of everything. Playing this game now, I mean, it's definitely, we're playing more and more Metroidvania, I gotta say. I mean, I'm starting to get really good at those reflexes. Not as good as I would like to be because, Ori is very challenging. It's you learn these skills and there's so much, a touchy element to it to grasp some of these, hitting certain platforms or hitting certain walls, and you need to hit it at this exact spot or that you need to do in order to get there. And sometimes these things can be very frustrating at the same time.
Yeah, definitely so. I think in many ways, one of the biggest complaints when we looked at Seasons After Fall previously was the fact that we had this very beautiful game, but there was no sort of element of danger. When we play Ori and the Blind Forest, though, we get essentially what we got with Seasons After Fall, but with very much the danger element cranked up.
It's in the art of saying Ginso tree and all that, it is a tsunami of danger. Okay.
Now, I mean, going into this game, I really had no idea what to expect. I knew it was going to be a very pretty game because I'd obviously seen the trailers and stuff, but we obviously open and we've got this really emotional introduction. We've got the little Ori, who's this little fox-like sprite creature, and she's like raised by Naru, who is basically this world's version of like Totoro. Mm. And you see it, and it's there, and it's giving it pigback rides and shaking trees, and it's such delightful little sequence. You think, oh, nothing bad's going to happen, and then it's sort of like, no, the tree got depressed, and then everything died, and it's sort of like, and you see this Naru, and this isn't really a spoiler because this is right at the start of the game, and when Naru dies, it was sort of like, oh my god, I cannot be dealing with this at 5 a.m. I have not had enough coffee. I'm going into thinking this is going to be like a cute, adorable game. We're going to throw like sprite parrot things, and it's going to be like a real fun little romp, and sort of like a very much in the vein of like My Name is Totoro or Spirit of or Princess Mononoke. But no, it hits you pretty hard early on with the emotional element there, and from there it really hits the ground running. You're off, you're exploring this world, and it's such an immersive world. Once again, this is a beautiful world to explore. It's like you're playing inside a painting, and this time obviously we've got much stronger Metroidvania elements than we obviously saw always Seasons After Fall, which while it had its fun platformy elements, it certainly didn't feel like it was giving us much in the way of challenge, and this game certainly does give us a challenge. I think right from the start you realise that everything in this world is going to want to kill you. And all you can really do to start off with is to throw like a little, I don't know, light balls.
The spirit flame, they call it.
And as you obviously go on, you can get different power-ups to obviously hone different skills. So you can use like a catapult skill, you can throw enemy projectiles back at them. So as you go further into the game, the spirit fire does seem a little more pointless, as you often find yourself either avoiding enemies or using something like the catapult to just throw projectiles back to sort of defend yourself more. So it would have been nice to obviously see that spirit fire, this sort of like main power that you have more of a boost than you obviously end up with. But no, I was very surprisingly pleased with this game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like there's so many, like we talked about it when we were talking about Guacamelee, which is also a Metroidvania. And we talked about how, like, the challenge became something that you wanted to fight for. You wanted to push through because you wanted to see more. And I think it applies the same for Ori. Like, it's such a beautiful world, and you kind of feel like you want to get through it. Yeah, sure, some of the parts are, like, stupid challenging. Like, it's just stupid hard, you know? Like, it doesn't make sense why it would be so hard. And I think that that's how sometimes, like, for myself, it's easy to break out from the story a little, because as the story was going, it took me so long to get through some parts in order to continue on with the story. And in a way, I kind of felt disconnected from it at a certain part. I still wanted to figure it out, and I still wanted to see how the story would develop, but it's just, you know, some parts are like, you know, when you go into some place, like I just got a new move and then I have to go into a bed of spikes with 3 walls to jump on, you know? Like, I can't, you know? Like, I look at it and I'm like, oh my god, this is like something I just want to shut off the computer. This is too much planning in advance and like reflex for me to handle at this moment, you know? I mean, you game early in the morning and I game late at night, so we're kind of all in the same boat where we're either struggling with some fatigue somewhere.
Yeah, we're playing the more extreme mode where you like do either like sleep deprivation of one way or another. It's yeah, this is a game which will take great delight, it seems, in beating you down. I think not so much to the like sadistic nature of like Rain World or Super Meat Boy. It's still a very tough game, but there seems to be a great delight in finding new and inventive ways to obviously kill Ori. This in turn brings us to one of my big problems with the game, and that's the save points of this game, because while you obviously have like spirit fountains in the game, which are kind of like they kind of look like spirits hot tubs. that Ori sits in, and then you can use them as save points. Or you can also create her own sort of save points.
Yeah.
But if you make them in the wrong location, so if you make it to the start of like a cutscene or something like that, you will have to watch the cutscene play out every time you die. Or if you put it so that the timing's off, or you're in the slightly wrong position, you're going to have to deal with that problem every time. There is no give. The game will like punish you for like wanting to save in the wrong locations, and that annoyed me something rotten.
No, I mean, I totally get it, because I remember that not only is it that, it's that in our mindsets right now as we game, everything is automatically saved. So you don't really think about creating save points. And these save points are actually important because they double as your charge up for your ability when you've created enough orbs from killing enemies and all sorts of things, right? So they have two purposes, but at the same time, it's just, you don't automatically think about doing that. I remember in the first level, that was one of the biggest issues. You died, and then you would start from the beginning, and then you'd be like, oh, God, I gotta put up that save point. You put that save point, and then, I remembered, like, one part where we were doing this extreme platforming, and there was this thing shooting at the same time, and it was just these tiny little platforms that you have to go across the water with. And it's really early because we haven't cleansed the water, so the water isn't, it's still very, like, you're still going towards your first big objective. And it's just ridiculous as you're going through this. And I remembered I saved, mindlessly I saved, and I had one life orb left, like one life cell left. So if I got hit once, that was it. So I had to do that part with one life cell and hope that the enemies I was killing was going to spew out some life cells for me so that I would have at least two to go through to the next part. Oh my God, that part took me forever. But that is a big, big, big frustration. I mean, save points are so important, and it's such a grind. Like, these games, Metroidvania is, I've been playing a lot more of them now because of the channel and because of, the podcast. And it's this thing where Metroidvania is a grind. You have to be persistent. You have to be patient in order to get to the next level and to get through certain parts. And there's usually a ton of challenge. And to not have it automatically save, I feel like it's kind of like making it difficult for more than it should be, because the game is already really hard. It didn't need to do that.
Oh yeah, and certainly when we get to the end of like each of the dungeon sections, you will have, as with like Metroid, you have like the time bomb sequence, or in this case you have like the tsunami sequence, and there's no way to save your progress during these segments. So if you mess up, which you more than likely will, because a lot of these rely on very precision jumps or use of your abilities, so you're going to find yourself replaying over the same bits over and over again. And it's a very, I think for old school gamers, it may be a little less brutal, but for those who didn't obviously come up for the 90s, where we didn't have like autosaves and frequent sort of checkpoints where you have to like do games on 3 lives and stuff, this idea of getting good at small sections, just doing them over and over and over again, I think maybe something of a bit of a grind. And it was frustrating when I was obviously doing like the big sort of climax to these dungeon sequences, that you couldn't like have at least a little breather at the partway point, so you could just drop a save point and then continue on the next part. It was like, no, we're in this sequence, and you're going to do it from start to finish, and you're going to do it perfect. And if you don't, then this game is going to spank you for it, and then send you back to the beginning. You will be punished for your inability to play this game. And you can tell the way it's programmed. It's not trying to be unfair. It's punishing you for not being good enough. Like, you have to get better as a gamer to complete these sections.
But, and in one way, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, yeah, we can say we're frustrated by it, but then it's also kind of telling you that you do need to master these abilities in order to be able to progress in the next part of the game, and that's why they set these segments for you. But this leads me to one thing that I did really like about the game, and it's that they're able to change up the level designs quite a bit. So, in the start, you get pretty simple. I mean, as you go through, you go to like I don't know if it's a Forlorn Ruins or something, but that's the one with like the gravity manipulation that they have. And then there's one where it's like very water level based, and then you have all these you have all these different parts, and they really like there's the Misty Woods, and that's a little different, and there's these different elements and different scenarios and different environments, and that keeps people engaged into playing the game and really exploring what there is.
What I like about Ori, I mean, this is a story that we've obviously seen before. I mean, we saw it with obviously Seasons After 4, where you're going on and collecting the 4 seasons. Here again, it's to restore the balance of Nebel, this world, you have to collect the elements for waters, winds, and warmth. These 3 elements that you have to obviously collect, and it reflects obviously in the stages. And even though we're obviously looking at ideas that have obviously been done before, there's still a real sense of originality to what we see with Ori, be it in the combat sequences. I mean, for such an adorable game, it does feel like it's got quite a beefy combat sequence to it, and certainly with the puzzle elements. There's a puzzle when you're pursuing one of the few characters that you meet, called Gumo, who's like a spider-like creature. Mm-hmm. And he basically throws up this wall, and you have to use these other enemies in the area to destroy the wall, because your abilities can't destroy these walls. So it was nice the fact that it's like, just because an enemy's on the screen doesn't mean you have to kill them. Some enemies are there to serve a purpose to clear pathways, and it makes you obviously think. You don't kind of just like go around charging, going like on this massacre through this fantasy world. You have to sometimes like stop, take a minute, and think, oh, I know I actually need to save that bad guy, because he's going to shoot this projectile, which I can then use to blow up this doorway or whatever. So I like the fact it was constantly giving me something new, and I liked as well, like, if you take, like, for example, you defeat the spiders, they hit the ground when they die with like such a satisfying thump. There's like a real sort of presence to this world that it feels that you are interacting with things. These aren't just generic enemies spawned over and over again. It feels that you are this little creature, and these are the obvious dangers of this world that is having to basically overcome. So it's even though it looks adorable, it does have a very satisfying combat mechanic to it, certainly.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, something else like that I criticized greatly in Seasons After Fall was the map. And that was something that was implemented so well in Ori and the Blind Forest. I mean, yes, you could unlock the map as you were going through, but there's also the option that you can find map stones, and that would just unlock the map itself, showing you paths that you've been to and paths that you haven't. And even like where certain, spirit wells are to recharge your energy is, and all these like orbs and all that stuff that you can find. And I really like that, because it really like kind of makes you want to explore also, because you know where things are. You kind of are a little bit more motivated to go to these areas and kind of really know where you are, and it really prevents you from getting lost.
When we're obviously talking about the map, and something that's certainly frustrated me, the fact that once you finish this game, that's it. There's no free roam at the end of this game, and there's certain abilities that you pick up that would obviously make accessing different areas a lot more easier, which unfortunately you don't get to do. However, this was sort of corrected a bit with the definitive edition of the game, as we did get a fast travel system that allowed you to travel between the spirit fountains. So if you plan it right, if you're doing this in your second playthrough, then you can obviously make the most of your abilities to obviously get through these sorts of sections. But yeah, I don't know, did you find it a fun world to explore? I mean, it's obviously frustrating in parts. It felt like it was a little sloppy in places when you have like those masses of thorns that just seem to be a little slop-hazardly placed, and that the only way to get through them is to basically injure yourself. There were elements like that, but largely I found it an enjoyable world to explore.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely challenging. Even just, normal roaming, it was hard sometimes to get through places, but the world is enchanting. Like there's turns everywhere. There's, like you look at the level designs and you look at how everything's put together, and it's it helps also that they have this beautiful soundtrack as you move from one area to the next, and it really is just so enchanting to listen to as you're going, and it's just it's just there in the background the whole time, and it makes your experience like so much prettier despite it really falling back when you're really struggling. So just to to think back to the combat thing, there's something that's really funny about this game is that while during the path you have these little creatures that you need to fight, and I really love the creature designs on all of them. They kind of mimic sort of what we have, porcupines spitting out spikes and little bulbous lava thing creatures that explode and stuff like that. And, there's these sections where they bar you off, and it's a boss that you need to fight. It's like boss with quotation marks around them, because they're actually like super easy to beat. They just really require perfect reflex in order avoiding them. Whereas, your major bosses in this one is actually your levels where you need to escape. Like, say, the Ginso tree, which is like just the tree flooding as you cure it, and you release the water into nature, and the water is trying to drown you the next moment that you know.
I think just the general character design throughout is really interesting to look at. We mentioned already the Totoro character that we see at the beginning, Naru, and I think Naru really gave a good indication of what to expect from this game. And when we meet other characters like Gumo, and just the way Gumo moves, these spindly little limbs, and moving the orb that he's stolen from you around, and even like Kuro, who's basically an owl, there's still this real nice mythical element to it. And throughout the game, we have some enemies that work perhaps a little better than others. We've got like those weird blob things which just take like 1 billion hits because they keep fracturing into smaller little creatures. We've got, like, as you said, we've got the porcupines. We've got this weird fire-breathing frog thing, and there seems to be constantly something new to discover all the time. Something new and something new to annoy you. But I don't think there was any sort of part where I thought, oh, that didn't need to be sort of included. I was very happy with how the story progresses and the path that it takes. I mean, certain elements, as you mentioned when we get to like what we assume to be the boss and what is actually the boss, and just these bloody escape sequences, they can be a little frustrating. But at the same time, when you see like the way the water floods the tree, and it's like you're escaping a painting here. Yeah. This isn't like water effects like we've seen before. These are like brush strokes the water is like appearing in, and it's like you have to like take a minute and just like think, I can't get distracted by the pretty visuals. I need to be focusing on what I'm doing here. I'm going to be killed by art.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true. I mean, the game is very pretty, and the Ginso tree one is one of the most astounding parts of the game, and also one of the brutalist parts of the game. I just made up a word. Brutalist does not exist. But yeah, it's just fantastic. Like, that segment was brutally amazing. Like, it's just like it takes so much energy to get through it, and yet, but the thing is, once you get out, you're embraced with this like enchanting, beautiful cutscene, and it's super nice. It's like a reward for getting through something bad, is you get to sit back and watch something happen. So what would you think is what would you give Ori and the Blind Forest?
Ori and the Blind Forest, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. It's frustrating as all hell, but at the same time I found myself overwhelmingly charmed by this game, and it gave me the same visual art style I enjoyed with Seasons After Fall, but it just, at the same time, it's given me everything that I wanted from Season After Fall, which is obviously missing. So I get danger, I get combat ability, I get a real sense of purpose and urgency too when I'm playing, rather than, oh, it's just sort of like a Sunday stroll for a mythical world. It's sort of like, this one actually felt like it had some like real depth, and the storytelling throughout it is absolutely fantastic, and it suits the style of game it is. It's very sort of fantastical, and very sort of fancy based. It's like it's a sort of fantasy game that I would love to see more of, and that we obviously see with things like Studio Ghibli, and it's nice to obviously see those elements being parried across into like the video game world, and it makes me all the more excited to when we obviously see the sequel that's coming up ahead, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, to obviously see where they go next with the story. I think that's what I'm most excited about now, is to see where the story goes next.
Definitely. I'm actually right along with you. 4 out of 5 for sure. Like a solid 4 out of 5, because it's just fantastic. Like, it's beautiful. It's there's so much, like, for everything you said. Like, it's really, I guess it's an off balance challenge that I find that it really kind of like, and the save points mostly are the things that could be very bothersome. But other than that, I mean, this game is really pretty, and it's definitely worth playing, especially if you like like, the world has everything you want, It has beauty, it has nature, it has combat, and it has, so much beautiful, enchanting creatures and nice soundtrack. It's a game that's done really, really well. So, this wraps up this episode. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to hear your feedback and any game recommendations that you have. Head over to our home base, thatmomentin.com, to read more gaming reviews, to get gaming news and releases every day. Like us on Facebook at Game Warp Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. Until next time, bye!